Hey there, John Morris here, johnmorrisonline.com, and welcome to another episode of The John Morris Show. And in this episode, I'm going to be answering another one of your questions. So this was a question that I received over on Quora.com, and the question is, do developers memorize all tags, classes, and functions? Now, before I dive into that question, I wanted to ask you a favor. I'm currently in the middle of creating a course on Elance and Odesk about how to essentially dominate these sites and use them to help you grow your web design and web development business. And I am finishing it up. It's going to be roughly probably top about 40 lessons by the time I'm all done. It's going to teach you everything you need to know to be successful on these sites. However, I need your help. So I want to make sure that I'm covering all the bases and answering all the questions that you have. So I've created a quick little survey for you to take, and really it only has one question. And the question is, what are the two most important questions that you need answered in that training course about having success on Elance and Odesk? So if you could head on over to johnmorrisonline.com/Elance and fill out that quick survey, that'll help me a ton, and that'll make sure that I cover all the bases and answer all of the questions that you have inside of the course. All right, so with that out of the way, then let me go ahead and dive into the answer to this question. So the question goes in a little bit more detail here and talks about, I'm on my journey of learning front-end development, and one thing I've been wondering is, how do developers recall the names of the tags, classes, and functions? For example, in Bootstrap, there are classes to create grids that are named call-md-3 or call-xs-6, and then HTML itself has a lot of markup tags, and HTML adds more, or HTML5 adds more. CSS has a ton of properties, etc. Do you memorize all these tags, classes, and functions? And so the answer is no. I don't know anybody that does. I'm sure there are probably some people out there that do, but it's those people would probably be in the minority, would be my hunch. And it's certainly not necessary for you to be a successful, well-rounded, competent developer. The smartest developer I know, the best developer I know, will oftentimes will ping me and ask me very basic questions about individual functions or things along those lines. And it's just simply because he's pinging me to see if I happen to know off the top of my head, and if not, then he'll go ahead and look it up. And this is a guy who has built a number of different large-scale plugins for WordPress. He's built lots of things outside of it. He's really he's the best developer I've ever met, and I would put him up against anybody in the online world in terms of knowing what he's doing. But he doesn't memorize all these things either. And the reason is that being a skilled developer really isn't about having things memorized. Being a skilled developer is about understanding things more on a conceptual level and being able to put things together in an intelligent way conceptually, and being able to hold these kind of massive ideas and concepts in your head about how something should be structured, being able to creatively solve problems and structure things logically that make sense and are scalable, flexible, and so forth. So it really has nothing to do about memorizing all the tags and so forth, which is one of the interesting things about new developers. Is I find that a lot of times new developers are focused so much on memorizing the basic functions and so forth, and they miss the conceptual part, which is so much more important. And so I constantly try to tell new developers, don't worry so much about the individual functions and how they work and so forth. You can look all that stuff up. Instead, focus on learning how to read the manual so that you can look them up and understand what you're looking at. Understand how to read other people's code so you can see how they do things, and you can then develop your own system for doing it. Start to figure out how you can piece together things on a conceptual level. That's why learning design patterns for for programs is a powerful thing, like MVC and so forth. Those are really more the things that you should be focusing on instead of memorizing individual functions and so forth. Beyond that, I would even take it a step further and say, don't memorize those things. In a proactive sense, I think it's a waste of time to try and sit and memorize all those things. You will naturally memorize the things that you use most. So you shouldn't even concern yourself with memorizing anything. You should just start building things and helping clients or working on projects and so forth, and you'll naturally memorize the things that you use most. And the things that you don't memorize are things that you're not using that often, so there's no point in memorizing them. So again, just know how to look things up, start building things, and you'll naturally memorize what you use most. All right, so that'll do it for this episode of the show. I want to thank you for listening. If you have a question you'd like to ask me, you can head on over to Quora.com/John-Morris-67 and ask me your question, or invite me to your question over there. You can tweet me at JPMorris using the hashtag JMoIWantToKnow, and I'll try to get your answers on the show. Also, if you haven't yet, you can head on over to johnmorrisonline.com and download my 7 strategies to turn your code into cash cheat sheet. And of course, be sure to subscribe and like this so that I know that this is the kind of content that you're after. All right, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.